Story 1. They take the time to filter any possible misunderstandings in an argument by asking questions to better understand the idea being presented instead of immediately assuming their first interpretation is correct. What always bothers me is when my argument is misunderstood and then attacked for supposed errors that actually arise from the listener's misinterpretation. Story 2. When someone can admit a mistake and accepts that they do not know everything. Story 3. They feel challenged rather than threatened by new things, problems, and ideas. Story 4. They are okay with being perceived as stupid by asking questions. If we hold back in fear, we will never truly learn. It is also a good way to show others that it is okay to question things if you do not understand. We are better off being on the same page instead of hoping things will work out without being informed. Story 5. They are very good at problem solving. Even if it is something they have no experience with, they always approach the problem from the right angle. Story 6. When learning something new, they care as much, if not more, about why it should be done a certain way as about what needs to be done. Story 7. I consider someone intelligent if they are able to explain something incredibly complicated in simpler and more readily understood terms. Story 8. They can adapt their communication style, including vocabulary, tone, content, and so on, to fit the situation and the people they are talking to, and it seems completely natural. Story 9. My freshman college roommate was a mechanical engineer. One of the first nights we were in the dorms, we had pizza delivered. We did not eat at all, but the pizza box did not fit inside the dorm refrigerator. He folded the box like origami and transformed it into a smaller, perfectly square box that fit inside the refrigerator in about 12 seconds. I am pretty good at math, but not necessarily geometry, and my mind was blown. I spent 35 years in academia as a student and teacher, and he is still one of the 3 smartest people I have ever met. His ability to simply do things is dumbfounding. His retirement project is transforming his father's 1963 Mercedes convertible into a hybrid with a small diesel engine that runs on vegetable oil and a totaled Tesla Model S battery pack. Story 10. They ask a lot of questions. It shows that they know what they do not know. Story 11. They get excited sharing their knowledge and talk to people instead of at them. This is not a complete guarantee of intelligence, but I have noticed it more often in intelligent people than in those who are merely knowledgeable. Story 12. I find that highly intelligent people can think in complex hypotheticals and be nuanced. Wise people have the patience and forethought to consider longer-term factors and to act considerately in ways that are difficult to anticipate. Story 13. They ask questions. They know their strengths and are aware of what they do not know. They are not threatened by gaps in knowledge but are excited to learn new things. Story 14. They struggle with imposter syndrome. People who are uninformed often overestimate their abilities. Story 15. They have a nuanced perspective and can articulate it well. They understand that things are rarely black and white but shades of gray, and they listen attentively to others in a conversation. Story 16. I have a friend who is a genius. This was especially clear when we learned Siemens automation software, such as the Totally Integrated Automation Portal. He taught himself almost the entire program in 3 days using the built-in documentation. Story 17. I have met several extremely intelligent people. One thing I noticed they had in common was low self-esteem. At the science fiction club I belonged to, there was an actual low self-esteem group. The man who did many of the calculations that allowed the Voyager probes to make the grand tour of our solar system was a member. All he could think about was what he did not know or what he could not physically do. The common issue I observed among these bright people was relentless school bullying. We lose so many of these geniuses to depression, suicide, self-medication, or just flat-out self-inflicted mediocrity. Society in the United States does a poor job of nurturing intelligence. It makes me incredibly angry how much of their potential was wasted. I do not include myself in that group. My intelligence is completely average. Frank Zappa put it best: intelligence is treated like a hideous deformity by American society. Story 18. They are gracious when others catch up because they are used to that situation and have realized it is not worth pointing out or making a big deal about being right. Story 19. One thing I have noticed is that really intelligent people tend to be empathetic. They have quietly analyzed many situations and thought critically about them. Story 20. They do not need to continually tell people how intelligent they are. Story 21. They pause to think about a novel question instead of instantly blurting out an answer. Sometimes people think it means they have been stumped and claim victory. They are thinking, analyzing, and formulating a reply. Story 22. I worked with a lad who was very much like this. He could make any conversation intriguing and thought-provoking, often causing people to reconsider their perspective. He was a human resources manager who could defuse any situation, repair relationships, and get both parties to compromise and set aside resentment. He had a high intelligence quotient and strong emotional intelligence that could have taken him far beyond his role, but he was content, and perhaps that was another kind of intelligence. Story 23. They ask a lot of questions before trying to provide answers. Story 24. Avoid academic talk or writing. I had a professor in my master's program tell everyone he hated academic writing, and he made sure that showed in his work. His writing read like a story without technical language, plain and simple so anyone could pick it up and follow along. He was a true expert in his field. Story 25. I usually find that creativity, humor, and verbal acuity are good signs of intelligence. I generally see lack of empathy, low openness, and viewing the world in absolutes as signs of low intelligence. Many socially awkward people consider themselves intelligent simply because they are socially awkward or not good at sports. Their ego needs something to value themselves on, so they assume they must be smart. It is possible that the other person in your life who makes you insecure is taller, stronger, more charismatic, and smarter. Such is life. Finally, people, especially those in technology, often conflate technical or domain knowledge with intelligence, which is not always true. There is a minimum level of intelligence required to be an engineer and so on, but being an awkward senior engineer does not mean you are too smart for others to understand. A lack of specific domain knowledge has nothing to do with intelligence. Story 26. They explain complex topics using metaphors and analogies. Story 27. Half of intelligence is critical and lateral thinking. The other half is comprehension. You need to identify what you already know, determine what you need to know, and plan how to get there. Finding the path to knowledge requires attentiveness and asking important questions. There is a desired outcome. Whether you reach it or not, your intention focuses your efforts. A subtle sign of intelligence is when someone asks questions and explains why they are asking or phrases the question to show intent. You can tell where they are going with their questions, and if the questions are irrelevant, you can both recognize that sooner. This approach helps them obtain the information they want and helps the person answering understand their train of thought and focus their response. Story 28. As you begin to learn more about a subject, you can enter a situation where you believe you know far more than you really do. You know far more than someone who knows nothing, but you may not realize that what you are learning has many nuances and requires deeper understanding. This is related to the Dunning-Kruger effect. The less you know about a subject, the more you think you know because you do not realize how much there is to learn. People who spend a few minutes on YouTube or Google can repeat some terms they just learned without understanding why it often takes 4 years to earn a bachelor's degree in most subjects, and many more years to become a specialist. That is frustrating to those who have invested time in study and experience. A person who shows some knowledge yet remains humble recognizes there is always more to learn. The more you learn, the more you see how much more there is to know, and it is important to move past that initial arrogance. I experienced this in my late teens. I became well-read on sustainable horticulture and botany, got a demanding job, and did it well. After a while, I realized my boss was an extraordinary plant expert. Once I set aside my ego, I learned many valuable lessons from him. Story 29. People who regularly ask for others' opinions from a neutral perspective, as if the idea is not their own, often present it as an open-ended question. Intelligent people often have internal confidence but seek others' opinions because they are aware of their own biases and flaws. They also have the emotional intelligence to set aside their ego or accept a loss if it leads to a better outcome or an important lesson. They listen and observe more than they speak, and they choose their battles wisely. That is why, more often than not, they come out ahead in challenging situations. You would not know how smart these people are from their docile demeanor until someone ignorant, rude, or insulting questions their competence. Then the response can be an intellectual slaughter. Story 30. Be able to read people and the room and adjust your communication style to be most effective. Include a sense of humor. Story 31. Dry humor. Pulling it off requires an observant, quick wit with a nonchalant delivery that almost downplays its own cleverness. A person's passing thoughts are often profound enough to be funny without any real effort. Story 32. Like books, fearless, offend, resolute, wild, toothbrush, tart, imagine, fertile. Story 33. An openness to hearing others' opinions is rare, and critical thinking is uncommon. Story 34. Efficiency and elegance in tasks. Other people are walking and the genius is doing ballet. Story 35. I was going to use my vast intelligence to form the perfect answer, but I forgot what we are talking about. Story 36. Not arguing with someone who is wrong and preferring peace of mind to being right. Story 37. They mispronounce less common words. This suggests they have not heard those words spoken often and learned them from reading. They are curious and self-educated. Story 38. Someone who is skeptical at first but listens to reason and facts and is willing to change their opinion if presented with contrary evidence. Story 39. Most highly intelligent people have self-doubt and are always questioning themselves. This keeps them grounded. Story 40. If someone is truly intelligent, they do not put down the intelligence of others or make others' accomplishments seem small. I have never met a genuinely intelligent person who feels the need to hint that someone else is not so smart. Story 41. They are storytellers. They craft narratives for themselves and for others that are compelling, make sense of the world, and instill a mission. Story 42. It is impressive to watch someone click with everyone they meet. Making strangers laugh and putting people at ease at any moment is not as easy as some may believe. There is definitely some intelligence involved. Story 43. They understand that there are multiple types or subcategories of intelligence and that they may be strong in some areas but weak in others. Story 44. An intelligent person often wants to learn more, so they will either remain silent and listen or ask thoughtful questions that deepen their understanding. Story 45. Brainstorming, balanced with troubleshooting and problem-solving, occurs concurrently and calmly before a choice is made. Story 46. One subtle sign of intelligence I have noticed is a tendency to overthink or analyze situations deeply. This can lead to social awkwardness or difficulty interacting with others, since intelligent individuals often consider multiple perspectives and potential outcomes before speaking or acting. This depth of thought can make spontaneous interactions challenging. Another sign is a preference for spending time alone. Story 47. They listen far more than they speak. When they do speak, it is often something like, "Huh, that's interesting," or "I don't know, but I will try to find out." Story 48. Many of these observations indicate people with high emotional intelligence, which is a valuable and unique gift. Some observations point out the negative actions of narcissistic or egocentric people, which others consider false intelligence. While these behaviors are negative, they do not indicate a lack of intelligence but rather flaws in personality. Some highly intelligent people do not develop strong social skills, yet remain very capable. If you put your ego aside, you can learn a lot from them. They do not behave offensively on purpose and are able to accept feedback. Story 49. They have no mental barriers and are open to trying new things. Their beliefs are only as strong as the information they currently have, and they change them when presented with new evidence. They have a desire for personal growth that does not end with age. Story 50. They are always quiet. Happiness is rare among intelligent people. They are so smart that they know their knowledge is limited and there is much left to learn. They are very self-aware. Story 51. They are witty. It is hard to come up with the perfect response to make everyone laugh on the spur of the moment. Story 52. They say, "I don't know," when they don't know something. Story 53. I feel many people mix raw intelligence with emotional intelligence, social skills, or wisdom. My partner is gifted, and one of our children is as well, which can be challenging to navigate in the education system. His strength is, simply put, a combination of excellent pattern recognition elevated by education. He is efficient in everything he does, and his immediate comprehension of complex problems is downright scary in a "can he see through the matrix" kind of way. He is still only human. He has bad days, sometimes gets angry, and speaks poorly to people. He can't always explain things in simple terms or simplify them, but there is no question he grasps the matter at hand. He is not always intrigued by everything or curious. He does not have a distinctive verbal style. He isn't always humble. He brags when he wins complex board games or chess, or when he counts cards as if it is nothing. When you ask him about something, he might just say, "I don't know why I get it. My brain just runs that way." Very intelligent people are not always exceptional in every way. They are just people. Since knowing him, I do not believe there are reliable signs of intelligence you can read from social behavior. Those behaviors are learned, and while they may come easier to intelligent people, at the end of the day you only know if you see a demonstration of intelligence. The person you are trying to assess might simply be well-adjusted, kind, or curious. Story 54. Intelligent at what? You can have a brilliant mind and breeze through school with top grades. But as soon as you are handed a hammer and a nail and given something practical to do, it all falls apart. Or you can be excellent at practical work yet struggle at school because you do not understand theory. The point is that many smart people are good at different things, and measuring intelligence is extremely challenging because we are so different. Story 55. According to my mom, she would augment our vocabulary lists each week with random words from an unabridged dictionary. Story 56. Large collection of discontinued Lego Bionicle sets. Unopened and in mint condition. Story 57. They are good at learning things. They ask the right questions and pick up new skills and knowledge quite efficiently. Intelligence is the ability to acquire and apply knowledge. Story 58. Use a rich vocabulary but never to the point of incomprehensibility or overspeaking. Someone who uses a word like avuncular in everyday speech is just trying to show off. Story 59. I have always admired rappers who can improvise complex lines off the top of their head while staying in rhythm with the music, such as Lil Wayne or Eminem when they are freestyling. Story 60. At minimum, they engage in problem prediction, modeling, planning, and solving. They ask many questions that efficiently break down new subject matter and help assimilate information. They seek understanding, not memorization or verbal regurgitation. Story 61. They post the same question on the AskReddit subreddit yet again. Story 62. Active listening. Very few people practice it. Story 63. I do not even know how to define intelligence anymore. I am pretty good at math. My wife has to use her fingers to add 5 plus 3. However, my wife can walk into a random kitchen, find a few ingredients that seemingly would not go together, and whip up an amazing dinner without using a recipe. Cannot do that. I can cook, but I need to use a recipe or work from a small list of ingredients I am comfortable with. I cannot do what she does. She cannot do what I do. How do I determine who is more intelligent? I can play the piano a little. I am not great at it. I can sit at the keys and, using sheet music and lots of practice, work my way through a relatively simple piece. Others can just sit at a piano and play music. Take Dave Grohl, for example. I am certain that I received higher standardized test scores than he did. I definitely did better in school and I have an advanced degree. I do not think Dave Grohl finished high school, but Dave Grohl taught himself several instruments and, without being able to read music, became the frontman of one of the biggest rock groups of all time. He has also written a best-selling autobiography, and it is very well written. Does my degree make me smarter than Dave Grohl? I doubt it. I think most people have their own strengths and weaknesses. When they are doing something that aligns with their strengths, they seem very intelligent. When they do things that reveal their weaknesses, they can seem quite foolish. Story 64. I taught a group of gifted elementary students. One girl hardly spoke, but when the group had a disagreement or problem, she cut to the core of the issue with one or two sentences. Everyone stopped in their tracks, paused to think, and began nodding. That was impressive. Story 65. Not feeling the need to talk all the time and being comfortable simply listening. Story 66. Being good at math requires recognizing how much logic underlies mathematical understanding. Story 67. They can admit when they are wrong and apologize. They can change. An intelligent person can argue and be persuaded, but can also recognize that they may never persuade the other. Story 68. They remain quiet until they have a point to make. They change their mind when new evidence is presented. Story 69. Kindness. I have found the smarter people I have met are also incredibly kind and empathetic. Story 70. They do not make fun of others when someone makes a mistake. They try to understand and help. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.